Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the American Sports Connection. I am your host. My name is Mike. I'm going to be trying something a little different today, where if you see the name at the end of YouTube where you have your fancy little video thing, I'm entitling this video, audio, whatever the hell you want to call it, Shooting the Shit Sunday. Just to try something a little different and let you guys get into my world a little bit more. Well, first things first. Yesterday, I don't know if you guys and gals watched the NBA playoffs. Some of the games were exciting, and some of the games were a laugher. Toronto did what they've done since they've existed in the playoffs. They could not win an opening playoff game. They have never won a playoff game, game one, in their history. Which is kind of crazy to think about, considering all the talent that they've had come through there in their careers, like Vince Carter and Chris Bosh, just to name a few. The other game that was kind of a laugher, even though to me they're exciting to watch because Adam really enjoys them, is the Warriors. That became a laugher. We actually left at one point in the second quarter to go make a food run because it had gotten so out of control. And by the time we got back, we had found out Steph Curry had hurt himself in late in the second quarter, which is a whole new dynamic on everything. If he's going to be all right, I think he's going to be fine. Because it looked like he really wanted to get back in yesterday, but Steve Kerr wouldn't let him. And as we're watching the Celtics and in the Hawks last night, it comes across the little ticker on SportsCenter that he's questionable to play on Monday. If that isn't gamesmanship, I don't know what is. And to be frank with you, this isn't a knock on the Rockets or Houston fans in general. I think they could beat the Rockets without Steph Curry. Would I, as a fan of Steph Curry, like Adam is, would I like to see them do that? No. But I still think it's entirely possible. Then we had the Hawks and the Celtics. This was a weird, crazy game where the Hawks were up by as many as 20, I believe, at one point in this game. And the Celtics came roaring back to pull with it, to take the lead, actually, at one point. And they went back and forth through the fourth quarter, with the Celtics basically running out of time trying to win this game. The thing that boggled my mind late in this game, though, was Isaiah Thomas had a chance to take a three to tie the game, and he passed it to Evan Turner, who, to my recollection, was shooting 30%, if that. I don't even think he's attempted 100 threes this season. So I don't know why he did that. Maybe he thought it was the better matchup. I don't know. But that was odd. And I don't even know why I'm going to talk about this one. But the Thunder just absolutely annihilated. That's the word of the weekend, because BD used it yesterday. Annihilated the Mavericks. It was an utter embarrassment. Adam was here for most of these games. He literally got up and left. I think it was partially through the third quarter, when the Thunder was up like 30, I believe. And he's like, well, this is not creating much, drama or dynamic to stay. So he skedaddled out of here, which I can't blame him. He's supposed to be back here later, today, for round 2, as we watch. The Cavs started off with the Pistons at 3 o'clock, I believe. The other thing we did, we were flipping yesterday, because if you're a sports fan, yesterday was a good sports day. We had the NBA playoffs, a couple of the NHL Stanley Cup playoffs, and baseball. Well, because I reside outside of the Philadelphia area, I'm in the Philadelphia market. We got the Flyers and the Capitals game 2, which was exciting the first period, because the Flyers had taken 19 shots on goal, which was more than the entire game 1 in that first period. But Braden Holtby was very, very difficult to beat. He shut them down on a 5-on-3. When they had a 5-on-3 power play, they could not score. John Carlson hit a slapper to score the first goal in the first period to give them a 1-0 lead. Then Steve Mason, who he gets a mulligan on this, in my opinion, let by the worst possible goal I think I've ever seen in playoff history. He kind of flubbed a 110-foot puck. He tried to kind of grab it with his stick, and he completely missed it. Left a 5-hole open, and it went in to give the Capitals a 2-0 lead, and at that point, it was just insurmountable. Jake Voracek did score in the second period to make it 2-1, to make it a little bit interesting. But then Alex Ovechkin got a power play goal on that slapper that he has, which is an absolute rocket. Mind you, he didn't have anybody on him to defend him either, to make it 3-1. And you just cannot, at this point, with the Capitals power play, put them on the power play. They're really going to hurt you. They're hot. And after that, it was basically the Flyers had no chance. Also, we were flipping back and forth between the Phillies as well in baseball. My God. They were the number 1 for starters ERA in baseball before Friday and Saturday. The first day, Friday, Jeremy Hellickson gives up 5 runs in the first inning to the Nationals. Then yesterday, Aaron Nola gives up 3 runs in the first inning to the Nationals. And they're both games are basically laughers, where they were 9-1 and 8-1, I believe, respectively. So that was a little downer. Not that I expected the Phillies to really contend, but they were at least hanging in there, making things interesting. But my goodness, the Nationals are 10-1, 11-1 now. So I'm intrigued, though, to see how they look when they play some competition. Because they've played most of their games against the Phillies and the Braves, who are 2 teams that are not expected to compete. So it'll be very interesting to see how things turn when they start to play some better teams overall. I have an interesting story, actually, what happened to me personally this week. My son, who I really don't talk about because I'm a single parent, he's 8 years old, and he started playing baseball this year, Little League. Well, we go to practices 3 times a week. He had his original first game was supposed to be last Saturday, but because of the wacky weather we've had with spring, we had rain and snow. It was canceled. So his actual first game was on Thursday. So we get to the park, and my son is playing on a team that is mostly made up of kids that have never played. Like, this is their first year ever playing some kind of Little League baseball. Well, the team he played is, if you're familiar with Mike Trout, that plays for the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. That's the town we played, or my son played, excuse me. And I didn't know this. They are super competitive with baseball over there, because these kids had to have been at least 2 years older than him, and they dwarfed any kid that was on my son's team. Also, it looked like they were playing together for at least a year, turning double plays and doing all these types of things. And it was just very unfair, because these kids were killing my son's team up 5-10 runs, stealing bases, hot dogging it, and, basically being poor sports. And it's sad that in most respects, because I've talked to other people like Lance, who comes on the show, and others who say that team sports are being ruined at the child level by a lot of parents, where they're trying to relive their glory or glory they never had, and they're getting in fist fights or, trying to get in arguments with the umpires and those types of things. Granted, this situation I had on Thursday definitely warranted to be angry or frustrated. I think I was the only person that was a parent that was not overly aggressively angry. For example, one of my son's assistant coaches had to be pulled off the field and had to go sit in his car because he was so angry over this other team, their practices, how they were just, running it up, trying to, make my son's team, who was their first ever game together, look bad. And they would laugh at the batters for my son's team when they couldn't hit a pitch or they struck out. Just really poor sportsmanship. For example, Lance told me he used to ref hockey games for high school, and basically under 18, any in that range. And he said he had to quit because the parents were so bad. It was just not fun. They're taking the fun out of playing the game. And where he lives in Canada, he also told me parents aren't really allowed to come to the games anymore because of a huge fight that broke out during a hockey game with a bunch of parents. So it's really sad, and it's been more widespread, I thought, in baseball and little leagues, where they've kind of lied about kids' ages. Because I asked this, they had a third base guy come over, like they do in regular games for the majors and so forth. I said, wait a minute. I said, how old are these kids? And he goes, some of them are 8 and the rest are 9. If you saw some of these kids, they looked like they had to be at least 10. They were very disproportioned as compared to my son's team. And I remember Outside the Lines had a big thing about this on ESPN, and the whole Danny Almonte thing, where he was really 2 years older than what they said he was. And it's just really sad that it's mostly in little leagues, but I'm sure other sports do it as well, that parents or coaches are trying to teach children that it's okay to lie about your age so that you can win a championship or, be competitive or try to almost like win something you never had. Like if you weren't good in school, if you're a parent, if you weren't good enough to play, or you did play and you want to vicariously live through your child and do things that way. I think, Little League Baseball, I don't know how you can do it on a national level, but they really need to start taking a look at these things with people falsifying how old kids are so they can play. It's just a major, major problem, in my opinion, that's going on in baseball, but I'm assuming it goes on in football and basketball and other sports. It's just very disappointing, and it makes me wonder if that's why the generation of kids that are growing up today that are millennials, the ages of 18 and 35, which I'm a part of, if that's why people always say, you're like the self-entitled people and you always want something and now and all that kind of stuff. I wonder if we should be retrospective and take a look at, maybe the parenting has been an issue here, where that's where it's all stemmed from and kind of had a ripple effect. But that's just my opinion. I could go on a much longer rant about that, but I'm going to cut it at that. I'm trying to think. The other interesting things that happened this week has been, the Rams traded for the number 1 pick with the Tennessee Titans. The Rams gave up 2 firsts, 2 seconds, and 2 thirds to move up from 15 to 1. That's a lot to give up. All I gotta say is they better hope whoever they're going to take, which by all accounts is going to be Jared Goff, the quarterback from Cal, or Carson Wentz, the quarterback from North Dakota State, they better be right. Because if they're wrong, you're going to see another Robert Griffin III situation where they gave up a king's ransom for him and it just kind of fell flat on their face. But granted, RG3 got hurt and he was kind of never the same player after that. Because I'm reading as I'm talking to everyone out there, the Rams have actually scheduled meetings with both Jared Goff and Carson Wentz. And it seems like the media community, like Adam Schefter and Chris Mortensen and those types of people, they're all split on this. Like, some believe Jared Goff is going to be the pick, while the other half believe Carson Wentz is going to be the pick. I actually like Carson Wentz for the simple fact of he's a bigger guy, and I think he could take the pounding of the NFL a little better. My concern with him is the talent scale that he was playing with. When you play at North Dakota State, I don't think you're going to find many All-Americans or can't-miss NFL prospects. So that would kind of concern me. If you wanted a guy that you knew could start from day one, you could plug him right in, and he could be your guy, in my opinion, that would be Jared Goff. He went to Cal. He's used to playing in pressure games, in conference and bowl games. And the other thing that makes me laugh about this process is they're looking at your hands. They measure your hands, and people are kind of taken back by Jared Goff's small hands. And I just laugh at that because I didn't know that people valued, at least in the NFL circles, they valued small hands as a bad thing. Because Carson Wentz has a big hand. So apparently that's a plus. But when I think of Carson Wentz, I keep hearing a lot of people compare him to Joe Flacco. Since Joe Flacco was the last quarterback to come out of a 1AA school, kind of like that, and have success, because he came from neighboring Delaware and actually won a Super Bowl. So I don't know if it's fair to compare him to that just because he went to a small school. But who knows? The other interesting thing that's going on since that domino fell is the Browns have been rumored to wanting to be trading out of the number 2 pick because Hugh Jackson does not like Carson Wentz. He likes Jared Goff. And as time has gone on this week, more people have said they believe Jared Goff was going to be the number 1 pick. So, even after adding Robert Griffin III, they've been considering taking Jared Goff for Carson Wentz. It looks like they like Jared Goff. So, if that's the case, they're considering trading down, which I know several teams that are interested in moving up, 2 of them being the 49ers and the Eagles. And from everything I read is the Browns might be desperately trying to get out of that number 2 slot and might trade the pick at a discount, which would favor other teams, because I do know from being in the local Philly market that the Eagles attempted to secure the number 1 pick from the Titans and were apparently close, and they had offered their first this year, their third this year, a first next year, a second next year, and a 5th next year. And supposedly that was close to being done, and then that's when the Rams stepped up and made the offer they made. Coincidentally, with the Eagles' second-round pick they got in the Sam Bradford trade. So, if the Eagles move up to number 2, I'm interested to see what they're going to do. Are they going after Carson Wentz or whichever quarterback doesn't go number one? Do they want Jalen Ramsey, who I think is the best player athletically, overall talent in this draft? And Ray Didinger, who from NFL Films fame has also said he believes is the best player in this draft. Or somebody like Miles Jack, who is extremely talented, but just is coming off an injury. Or is Chip Kelly, if they trade for the number 2 pick, what are they going to do? Are they going to do the same thing and go after a quarterback because of the dicey situation with Colin Kaepernick, where they've kind of been in a stalemate with Denver, where the deal was completed, but Colin Kaepernick did not want to take a pay cut and lose $5 million, which I understand. You don't know how long you're going to be a professional. Try to make the money while you can now. However, you would have been on a defending Super Bowl champion team, had a lot of weapons offensively, still a pretty darn good defense, even though, they lost a piece or two here and there from free agency. It's bound to happen. So we'll see if that deal actually happens, or Chip Kelly and the 49ers GM move up to number 2 and go get their guy that they want. Because I've read reports where the 49ers don't believe Kaepernick will be there. They'll eventually move him. And the Chip Kelly wants to work more with Blaine Gabbert to try to resurrect his career than Colin Kaepernick, which is strange to me. When it's not in a disrespectful way to Blaine Gabbert, but it's just really odd. Because, in my opinion, Colin Kaepernick is a supreme talent. If you let him run around a little bit more and try to find open men that way, because that would seem like that would fit Chip Kelly's style. Because when he was in Philadelphia, he never had the mobile guy that could kind of run around, and cause mismatches and do those types of things. So we'll have to see where that leads up to. The other thing that actually interests me is everyone said Larry Tunsil was going to be the number 1 pick in this draft. You heard it from the time the picks were, you found out who was picking number 1 and so on and so on. I want to see where this guy's going to land at. Because everything I hear is that this guy is a franchise left tackle. That he's basically, you sign him, or draft him, and he's going to be a guy that is going to play for a decade. To me, if you're the Chargers at 3 and he's there, it'd be very hard for me not to take him, just because they have had so many offensive line issues over the last 2 years. It would just be very, very hard for me to turn him down if he's sitting there right in front of me. Shit, I wish he would fall to 8. For the Eagles, with me being an Eagles fan, they need a replacement for Jason Peters. But I doubt that's going to happen, because if it's him and Ronnie Stanley from Notre Dame, Tunsil's going to go first. I could see someone take, like the Ravens at 5, taking him, or 6, taking him before Philly picks at 8. So the number one pick being traded is just really, upset the apple cart, so to speak, and turned everything on its head. So, and we're less than 2 weeks away. Excuse me. I think it's the 28th is the draft, if I remember correctly. So everybody's starting to get really, really excited for that. I'm really excited because I'm not going to have to wait, 3 hours to see my team make its pick. So that's always nice. Other interesting things that went on this week. Let's see. Well, we had the baseball season going to full effect. We've been in about, 2 weeks? I like baseball, but it's so hard to watch when it's the only thing left from like June until football starts back up in August. Because I'm a football junkie, so even preseason games, it's like you're a crack fiend, like salivating over football coming back. Christ, even if it's the Hall of Fame game. And the NFL does this purposely, where they kind of throw you a little bone every month after the season's over. Like February, obviously, is the Super Bowl. Then March is free agency. Then April's the draft. May and June are OTAs. And then July is training camp. So they purposely do that to get like something every month to kind of keep you hooked. So you're like coming back for more. So credit to the league for doing that. They're really smart, and then I eventually believe, I don't know when, but the way the league is going, they're going to eventually put a team over in London or somewhere in England. I don't know where. Because there's three games this year, I believe. And they keep doing this every year, and supposedly it keeps getting more and more and more. My friend Dino went one year because he's a hardcore Steelers fan. I don't know how they would do that, because that seems like the way they're trying to go, where to eventually have another team in LA and not LA, excuse me, in London, because if I remember, they have 32 teams now, and if they brought another one in, it would make it an odd number, and they'd have to realign all the divisions again, which would be an absolute disaster, unless they're planning on bringing 2 teams in at once, which is very possible too, to make it an even number and leave it as an even number of teams in each division. I don't know how the hell they're going to do it. It's kind of like what the NHL is doing. They're, the last I had heard, it was 2 teams, expansion teams, that were coming in. Maybe a third. The last article I read, they wanted to bring back the Quebec Nordiques as an expansion team, which would be really cool because of back in the day with the old Nordiques Canadians feuds they used to have back in the 80s. They were always fun when Patrick Waugh was still there before they moved to Colorado. And then the other one was in Las Vegas, which to me is a recipe for disaster. I don't think a team in Las Vegas would ever work because of all the things that are there to distract you. I just think it would be bad business. But who knows? I know the Raiders were even potentially looking to go there. And that, to be quite honest, Adam is a Raiders fan, and it might fit them perfectly because that's kind of their MO. You know, the bad boys and all this stuff. So you might, if the Raiders end up in Las Vegas, you might see a lot more arrests and all kinds of craziness going on, even more so with the Raiders. The other city that was rumored to get one was Washington State. Washington State was rumored at one point to get one. It might have been Seattle, actually. From where Seattle used to play the old Supersonics. They were attempting to try to build a new building to house basketball and hockey. So that would be kind of cool for those fans that got screwed over in Seattle with the Supersonics that turned into the Thunder, and they lost, you know, Kevin Durant and Westbrook, and watching that exciting team. That was kind of not fair. So we'll see where they go, because I had read a lot of different proposals that they wanted to bring. If they couldn't get basketball, they wanted to at least bring hockey to that area. And I think it could work because that Pacific Northwest area where they're almost near Canada would kind of work well for them, I think. Because that seems like a hockey market. Or at least it does in my opinion. But we'll have to see how things go. Alright, everybody. I just wanted to have a little fun here. Try something different. And shoot the shit Sunday, which was exactly coming off my mind. This was just spur of the moment. Nothing fancy. Just kind of going right off the top of my head what's been going on. And give you a little insight on what's been going on in my world this past week. Maybe we'll try it again next week. Alright, everybody. Don't forget to like. Don't forget to subscribe. Feel free to follow on our social media pages on Facebook and Twitter. The links are below. And I will be back Tuesday evening, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. We will be going over Monday Night Raw, WWE, review of the show, and the results. Call in if you wish with your opinions, how you felt the show was. It's on Skype. We're on Skype at American Sports Connection, all one word. And I hope to see you next time. All right, everybody. Have a nice weekend and hope you enjoy the rest